The Syracuse Orange come into game number 6 on their schedule of the 2019 season, fresh off of a bye week, and they find themselves on a 2-game winning streak. The question everybody's been asking is how will they fare on Thursday night down in Raleigh, North Carolina in a big-time matchup against the NC State Wolfpack? Find out here next on Orange Heat.
Syracuse Orange fans, can you feel the heat?
What is going on, Cuse Nation? Welcome to yet another edition of Orange Heat. My name's Giovanni Heater, as always, and thank you for joining me as we are talking Syracuse football. The Syracuse Orange have a big-time matchup tomorrow night, October the 10th, down in Raleigh, North Carolina, against the NC State Wolfpack. That game is going to be at 8 o'clock, Carter Finley Stadium, and the game can be televised on ESPN. Now, this game is very, very significant here. Not only is this just an ACC opponent, not only is this a game that historically NC State has dominated since Syracuse has joined the ACC, but this is a game in which I see as a must-win. First of all, they are in the ACC Atlantic Division, so this isn't like you're playing Pitt. This isn't like your Duke game. This has constituents for your division, and right now Clemson are the top dogs in that division, but right in the thick of things are teams like Florida State, are teams like Louisville, and Syracuse and NC State find themselves towards the bottom, but they are certainly clawing their way back up to the top as they have only played one conference game thus far this season. We'll get into it, but NC State's was Florida State. Obviously, Syracuse's first ACC matchup was against none other than the defending national champion, Clemson Tigers. Now, diving into some of the stats, looking at this game, ESPN gives Syracuse only a 40.8% chance to win this game. Now, I'm not a big believer in what ESPN necessarily has to say all the time with those percentages because basically, it's based off of who's got the home field advantage and a few other little niches here and there. I think this is a 50-50 ball game. I could agree that NC State has the upper hand on a Thursday night with their home crowd, but Syracuse definitely has beyond a shot in this ball game. This is a winnable ball game. This is an exciting ball game, and NC State opens up this game at 4.5-point favorites in the spread. Will I pick them? Will I pick Syracuse? We'll see towards the end of the video, but 4.5 points. Something to think about there. You know, it's not a touchdown, but it's also not a 2-3-point spread. So they're expecting a little bit of separation here for the Wolfpack in Vegas. And again, that's really shouting towards the home field advantage and other features like that. Talking about the NC State Wolfpack, this is a team that any ACC fan knows really well, especially because of their recent success. Head coach Dave Doran has this program going in a very positive direction, and there's really no arguing that. But what is this team without Ryan Finley has been the biggest question mark for Wolfpack fans so far this season, and they really haven't gotten the answer that they've been looking for. Quarterback Matthew Mackey leads the team in passing, but he's only 86 for 150 attempts, 910 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. The interesting thing about him, guess what? He's not going to be the starting quarterback under center on Thursday night against Syracuse. This is because he just hasn't been performing at the level that Dave Doran wants to see him at. Stepping in for him, who's going to get the start in this ball game, quarterback 1, Bailey Hockman. Now, Bailey Hockman started this season as the third-string quarterback for the NC State Wolfpack, but as I said, Mackey just not playing up to par. He's played well in the few opportunities that he's gotten, and really, this is an opportunity for Syracuse to take advantage of, but nonetheless, Bailey Hockman is going to start this ball game on Thursday night. Donovan Knight, the rushing leader for the NC State Wolfpack. On 54 carries thus far this season, he's gone for 293 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, NC State has found their little bit of offensive success this year on the ground. It obviously has not been going that well through the air, and that's what happens when you lose an NFL caliber senior leader in Ryan Finley. Donovan Knight has been that answer offensively, and he's a ground and pound type running back. I'm interested to see this matchup for Syracuse because Syracuse fared really well against a running back like Travis Etienne, who was a Heisman contender going into this season and is probably one of the best, if not the best, running backs in the country. But then Syracuse struggled against a guy like Levante Bellamy for Western Michigan. So this is an interesting thing here. Now, against Holy Cross, Syracuse held them to only 18 rushing yards. And then against Liberty, obviously in the negatives with that number, with total rushing yards on the game. So Syracuse is kind of hit or miss in the run game, but evidently they've showed that they can stop the run. So that's an interesting matchup to look at. The Syracuse linebackers versus Donovan Knight and the rest of the running back room for the Wolfpack. That's going to be a key to the game going into this Thursday night matchup. Now, who else is on this NC State offense to talk about? How about Emeka Emezi? This is a guy that came into the Dome last year with Ryan Finley and had an absolute field day for himself. He leads the team in receiving yards as well as receptions. He has 28 receptions for 281 yards and 1 touchdown on the year. Nothing to really shout about. I'll tell you right now, Tristan Jackson's numbers are more impressive than that. But Emeka Emezi, their leading receiver, and that goes back to the whole quarterback situation as well. This NC State offense thus far this season is averaging 29.8 points per game. Now, comparing that to Syracuse, it's just about even. They have a few more points than us averaged out. Syracuse averaging 28.6 points per game in their contest this year. How about points allowed on the defensive side of the football? NC State has allowed 20.8 points per game. Syracuse, 28.0, a number that NC State beats us in significantly, but you have to look at the fact that Syracuse has played some tougher opponents. Obviously, Syracuse allowed a lot of points down in Maryland in that contest against the Terrapins, and obviously Syracuse allowed a lot of points to the defending national champion Clemson Tigers, and rightfully so. So the competition level is a little bit different, but this NC State defense is good, and it scares me a little. This is a matchup that scares me, and I'll get into why a little bit later in the segment, but this is a tough game. This is a tough game for Syracuse. Total yards so far on the season. Offensively, NC State has 431 total yards. Syracuse has 385 total yards. On the passing yards for NC State, they have 247. Rushing, 183. Now, obviously, you're going to get more yards when you throw the football just because that's just science. The ball travels faster, right? But this is a running-dominated football team, and that's going to show in this matchup against Syracuse on Thursday night. Yards allowed, NC State has allowed 321 yards so far this season. How about Syracuse? Syracuse has allowed 438 yards this year. That's a scary number. As far we're talking average. We're talking average per game. That's a scary number. That's significantly favored in NC State territory there. So we're talking average per game. They have us beat in yards allowed, and they also have us beat by almost 100 in total yards. So something to think about there. Something to think about. Now, NC State coming into this ball game 3-2 overall, 0-1 in conference play. Does that sound familiar? Because that's the same exact record that the Syracuse Orange are looking at right now. But let's look at the NC State schedule. NC State opened up the season in a game against Eastern Carolina University. They won that matchup at home 34-6. Then the following week they played WCU. They won that game 41-0. Again, that was a home game. Following that, week 3, they traveled to play West Virginia in Morgantown, Syracuse's former arch rival. They lost that game big. They lost that one 44-27, a game that they hung around for a bit, but ultimately were just overmatched by really a depleted West Virginia team as well. Dana Holgerson's gone. Will Greer's gone. Stills is gone. Not the same West Virginia team. West Virginia took care of NC State with a little bit of ease. Now, NC State would bounce back the following week. They beat Ball State at home 34-23. So at this point, right now, NC State is undefeated at home going into this Syracuse game. But then following that, they would lose on the road at Florida State 31-13. They just absolutely got dominated by Florida State. So really kind of a very similar story to us as far as 2 games that they lost and were sort of dominated, and 3 games that they won with a little bit of ease. So very similar team to Syracuse here. Now, I will say Syracuse has played tougher teams than NC State, no doubt about that. I think Western Michigan's a tough team. I think that Liberty is a better opponent, and obviously you have Clemson and you have Maryland on the docket. Now, NC State also coming off of a bye week as Syracuse is. That's an interesting thing to look at because going into the bye week, they are a team playing very injured and playing very young. Right now, at left tackle, senior Justin Witt got injured. That's a huge hit to their offensive line. Who's playing for him? A freshman, Ikem Ikwanu. That's a big-time shot to the NC State offensive line in a game that their quarterback was already probably going to struggle. So for me, looking at that, you look at a depleted offensive line, and then you look at the fact that their quarterback right now, Bailey Hockman, who hasn't had that significant amount of minutes and he's performing the best right now for this team, but on a national level, nothing to shout about. Syracuse needs to apply the pressure. If they can pressure Hockman and get through that offensive line, this game could be easy for Syracuse, but that's a big if. If they can get pressure on Hockman, this game is going to be very favorable for Syracuse because NC State's not going to be able to move the ball. Our defense is going to be able to really dictate this ball game as long as we can get pressure on the quarterback. And that's the story in any college football game, but that's especially true in this game with the depleted offensive line and with the inexperienced man running the offense here. Now, this is a situation, though, that they're very much like us in the sense that they're playing very injured. We'll get into some of our injuries in a second, but as we know, Syracuse has had injury bug this season. A thing that terrifies me just a little bit about this NC State defense, 18 sacks on the season, and defensive tackle Laurel Murchison has 5 sacks so far this year. Those are big-time numbers when you're not even halfway through the season. And that scares me for the simple fact that the Syracuse offensive line has not held up very well, and Tommy DeVito has been running for his life on more than one occasion, week in and week out. The one time they played very well was in the Western Michigan game, and very well is a stretch. I think they played good in that game. So 18 sacks is something that scares me a little bit, and NC State's defense is talented, and they're the experienced part of this football team. They're going to carry this football team, and they're going to look to give Syracuse major problems on Thursday night. Just a little wrap-up of this NC State team. They're young, they're inexperienced, they're struggling offensively, but they have a really good defense, and that is going to carry this team. Now, looking at the other side of the football for Syracuse, and then looking at some keys to the game here, which we will talk about in a few. Number one, put a star on it. The biggest thing for Syracuse and me for this game is that Tommy DeVito is playing. He suffered a non-contact injury against Holy Cross. It looked bad because he threw an interception on it. The ball was just underthrown. He was holding his arm. He was kind of grimacing in pain a little bit. They kept it on the down low, as Dino typically does, over the course of the week, not to give NC State any kind of advantage there. But nonetheless, Tommy DeVito is going to be your starting quarterback in this ball game against the Wolfpack, which is absolutely huge because that's going to be crucial to the success of the team in this game. Well, we have Tommy DeVito back, but some guys are not back. Some guys that we really hoped with the bye week, with sitting out against Holy Cross, that they would be back this week. Without a doubt, we thought they were going to be back nearly 100%, and I was just incorrect on that, as a lot of analysts and a lot of beat writers and such were. That's Andre Cisco and Ifeatu Melifonwu, two core pieces to this Syracuse secondary. Obviously, Cisco, All-American, led the nation in interceptions last year. You guys know the drill. And Melifonwu has been contributing in multiple different aspects of this defense, but his coverage has been locked down this year. And he's been a phenomenal contributor to the Syracuse defense. Both those guys, right now, Dino says that don't expect to see him out there. It could change, but he's saying it's not looking good for tomorrow night. Now, Sam Heckel in this ball game also not going to play. He suffered an injury in the Liberty game, and that's a shot to the offensive line. Sam, we need you back because the offensive line is struggling right now. Doesn't look like Sam Heckel's going to play in this game. And another guy, McKinley Williams. We haven't seen him play. He got hurt in the fall camp, and man, what this defensive line could be with him. He's a huge piece to that. He's a huge core to filling that void that you lost with Chris Slayton that last year. We haven't been able to see him play. We thought we would have had him back by now. Originally, it was supposed to be a 2 to 3 week thing. That's not the case. It doesn't look like we're going to get McKinley Williams, but Syracuse is a private school, so this is a situation they can kind of hold their cards close to their chest, as Dino Babers typically does. So you very well could see a few of these guys on Thursday night, but Dino did say that it's not looking good. Kind of don't get your hopes up, really. Now, a key to the game for this, in my opinion, is going to be setting the tone early. Okay, this is a game that sets the tone for the rest of the season. This is more than just Syracuse playing NC State on a Thursday night. This is going to dictate which direction this season goes. For me, this is Syracuse going to roll over and play dead and be a 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 win football team, possibly even 4 and 8 again? Or are they going to keep pushing, show that they came to play, that they came to be a dominant force along with Clemson in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and come out to win? And if this is the message that they are going to send, either are we going to roll over and play dead and Syracuse can get trampled on, or are we going to fight? And I think they're going to fight, but this is a must-win on the calendar. I said in my preseason prediction that Syracuse was going to lose this game because it's a tough game. It's on a Thursday night. A lot of stuff going on into the mix with this game. And I said we were going to lose. Now, I don't know if I believe in that anymore, but I believe that this is a must-win ball game, and it's crucial to the attitude of not only the team, but the fan base for the rest of the season. If you want to pack the dome against Pitt, beat NC State big. Go into that Pitt game 4-2 with some confidence in the offense that they can handle business against a very, very impressive Pitt defense. If you want Syracuse to continue to have that same excitement, this is a must-win football game against NC State on Thursday night. Another key to this game is going to be guys stepping up. Just simple. We have guys injured. Melifonwu's out. Cisco's out. But guys like Eric Coley have been stepping up. Guys at linebacker position like Michael Jones have been stepping up. Coley has an interception already in his career at Syracuse here because of the fact that he's stepping up, making big plays, and he's also taking advantage of his minutes, and he's playing hard out there, and he's making things happen. We need guys to continue to do that. Offensive line, defensive line, because the reality of it is we are not deep right now. We are struggling with depth right now, and that's something that Dino's working on with the recruiting, but depth takes time to build. Yeah, you can get your star guys, but you got to have guys that can come in and replace him the same exact way. And that's a tough thing to do. Now, that's something we're working towards, but our depth is not where it needs to be, so guys need to continue to step up and contribute to this team. Another thing, Syracuse has to play 4 quarters in this game. That goes along with the depth. Guys are going to get tired towards the end, but this is a game that I could see going right to the wire. And that's going to keep a team into it, obviously, but they just got to be able to play 4 quarters, got to be smart physically, got to take advantage of the other team being tired. It's a psychological game, and they got to keep their heads in it for 4 quarters. Another key point to this is Syracuse needs to stop the run, if you ask me. Michael Jones, Lakeem Williams, Andrew Armstrong. We don't want our secondary leading with tackles. We don't want a guy like Andre Sisco leading the team in tackles. That's no good. We want to stop them with the linebackers. We want to shut them down early and show that we have a good run-stop defense, something that we haven't had in a while that's looked decent this year. We need to stop them with the run game. We need to stop their run game, plain out and simple. Another thing to look for in this game is look for Sean Riley and the tight ends to get going. Also look for a 2-back set for Syracuse because NC State can pressure. Flat out, I said they have 18 sacks on the season. And our jumbled O-line really hasn't proved themselves, and it doesn't help matters that much. So we're going to need to play tempo. We're going to need to hit the screen routes, the slant routes, the quick passes, get it out of Tommy early so he's not standing back there. As much as we'd love to watch him drop back and sling it, he's not really going to have that kind of time because they haven't showed that he has that kind of time this year. Now, he's done a good job of evading pressure. He looks like Aaron Rodgers out there on some throws. I'm going to be completely honest with you. But a key to this game is going to be using the check down receivers, taking advantage of what you have, and Tommy's just got to take what the defense gives him and let things play out. I think that they're going to do that very well, but look for guys like Sean Riley and your tight ends in a 2-back set to really get active in this game, as well as the run-pass option. Now, to wrap things up, these are 2 very similar football teams in some ways. It's going to be very rowdy down in Raleigh, North Carolina at Carter Finley Stadium on the campus of North Carolina State University. I'm excited. Game's going to be on ESPN. The nation will be watching on a beautiful Thursday night unless they are going to be watching NFL Thursday Night Football, of course. But all the Syracuse fans and the NC State fans are going to be out there. Syracuse has kind of a hub of fans down there and some locals that have moved around. So I think you're going to see a lot of Orange fans actually travel well for this game. But it's going to be packed on a Thursday night, and NC State always shows up big for their night games. It's going to be loud. It's going to be a tough atmosphere. Syracuse has to come out and control the crowd. Now it's time to leave you with our final prediction for this game. Let's get a little bit of a drum roll because we got to be goofy. Syracuse wins this game with a final score of 27-24. Now, I thought about going a little bit lower. I almost went like a 24-21. I don't think this is going to be anything too high scoring, but I have Syracuse winning it. I'm talking game-winning field goal, whoever has the ball last, 27-24. This is going to be a defensive game. This is going to be an exciting game. This is going to be what the ACC has been so far this season. You look at the Pitt game against Duke last week. You look at, teams like Florida State and Louisville. You look at the Virginia Tech Miami. These games are close. These games are down to the wire, and they're hard fought. They're scrappy. They're sloppy. That's what the ACC is this year. Take it if you love it and leave it if you don't. But we're ACC football fans, and that's what we have to expect this year. I'm going to expect a sloppy game on a Thursday night, but a good kind of sloppy and entertaining game. Syracuse pulls out the win, 27-24, guys. Thank you so much for all the support. It is appreciated, as always. You guys have been great with the commenting and the liking, and keep it up because I really appreciate. Let me know what you think of the show. If there's any directions you'd like to see the show go in, I appreciate you guys so much, and I appreciate Syracuse Athletics as always. So stay tuned for more. We're obviously going to do a post-game wrap-up of the NC State game sometime this weekend. We're going to do some live streams coming up as we always do. So just stay tuned on Orange Heat. You guys are the best. And as always, let's go Orange, baby. Woo!
Thank Thank you for listening to Orange Heat, done by pursuing sports broadcaster and high school student Giovanni Heater. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram at GioHeater. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more Syracuse athletics and Orange Heat action. Let's go Orange!